Warm up the shoulders. It's good to warm up before you start, man. You don't want to warm up and then you're in pain. If you have back pain, this is one of the best exercises you can do for lower back pain. Working on hip flexors. A lot of the time, back pain is caused because you have imbalance in your leg muscles, man. You have tension in your legs. And sometimes when you're losing weight, you lose muscle mass also. So you lose those small muscles. So when you lose those muscles, they get strained sometimes. So you have to do these exercises to keep these muscles stronger. What happens to people when they start doing a lot of running? You know? Yeah. That's why you see a lot of sprinters do these exercises. Yeah. I like listening to podcasts when I work out. I don't really like listening to music all the time. You know what I mean? So.
Joe Rogan Podcast, check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
I gotta finish this one. Joe Rogan and Mel Gibson.
Bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE.
When they appoint some cardinal in some diocese and he's been covering up for like people who are child molesters.
Yeah.
Like Theodore McCarrick or Cardinal
Mhm.
Wuerl or those kind of guys.
So I'm just gonna do the regular heavy bag workout. Keep it doing the heavy bag. I'm cutting weight, so I'm losing some weight. I lost like 5 pounds already. It's been a month. I took 2 months off. I had gained 10 pounds, so I'm headed back to 180, 185, 180, 178. That's what my weight is, but yeah. So yes, sir.
I mean, for the Pope, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm not,
Benedict.
not Benedict. Well, he was covering up, but
Yeah.
so is the guy now.
Is he really?
Well, yeah. It's not great.
I thought he was like the more progressive pope.
Oh, he's very progressive, yes,
But he's covering up for stuff as well. Well, they all are. I mean, it's a dark institution in a lot of ways because it's history.
Mhm. Well, the institution, it was instituted by Christ, but that doesn't mean that it can't be flawed. And there's a school of thought that says it isn't what it purports to be anymore. It's moved away from what it was intended to be and what it is. Almost there's a guy called Bishop Vigano who says it's a counterfeit.
Ever wonder how
parallel.
constitutional carry affects your right to carry and your right to self?
It's running an entirely different religion. I actually don't adhere to a post-conciliar church. I adhere.
Can you define what that means?
Okay. There was an event that happened in the 60s. First, there was an event in the Vatican where they elected John the 23rd Pope, right, in 1958. I was 2 years old, right? He was elected, and there was a very funny thing that happened in the conclave. Usually there's white and black smoke that goes out of the chimneys to tell you, we have a pope, habemus papam, and the white smoke came out. And everybody cheered, and they went crazy. And then about a half an hour later, black smoke came out. That never in history has that happened, that the white smoke came out. And then the black smoke.
So white smoke means we found a new pope. Black smoke means no pope.
That's right. They'd have boats, or there'd be one reason or another they'd have a round in the conclave, and black smoke would come out many times. Maybe it would take 2 weeks. But never was it known that white smoke came out, then black smoke came out.
So what was the scenario?
That somebody was elected, and that maybe something else happened, and he was pushed aside and someone else was put in. So it was
Power struggle.
some kind of power struggle. And of course, the man who came out was a man called Angelo Roncalli, and he was John the 23rd. Now, it's interesting to note that never had a pope taken the name of another pope ever before in history. But this man took the name of a known anti-pope from the 15th century, the Cosimo de' Medici, as his own man. I'll get you in the chair, and then everything will be rosy. Everything will go good for business. Whatever he was putting him in there for, some corrupt reason. But and there have been corrupt men in that place before. There's Alexander VI and Julius II, Sixtus IV. Some of these guys are, they're not saints. So he took the name of a known anti-pope from the 5th century, who actually said, yes, I'm an anti-pope. Sorry, I'm not the right guy. Because there was more than one, and he confessed to being, and he wanted to, square things with the Almighty, I guess. So he confessed to being an anti-pope, and so he took the same name as that guy, John the 23rd. So it's interesting, don't you think? Why would he do that?
Well, whenever you have that kind of power, like I'm sure you've been to that, right?
Yeah,
It's stunning.
yeah, it's huge.
It's so great. When you're walking around, you see just a massive, just a dollar value in the art that they possess.
Yeah,
It's fucking insane.
it's crazy. And it's a very small country. It's a country.
Yeah, it's a country inside of a small city. Because Rome's not the biggest city. And then it's got a country inside the city?
Yeah.
with walls around it,
Sure.
and you can't extradite people.
Yeah. Pretty good.
How convenient.
Even Ratzinger, he didn't drive from the Vatican to the other place. He flew.
Ooh.
And it was only a little while. Because who knows why? I don't know.
Well, he was wanted.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he had done, one of the things that he had done was he had moved a priest that had molested 100 kids. And he moved him to some new place where he molested deaf kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
That's the dirtiest, most evil practice that the Catholic Church has been accused of.
I think so. And many institutions as well. But that is a very bad one. And I think it's all part and parcel of the same corruption and corruption. And when you ask what's the difference between pre-Vatican, so Vatican II happened, and of course they took the church and they reformed it, and they changed things in it. And it didn't necessarily agree with everything that went before it. And up to that point, yeah, you could find it agree with itself. But all of a sudden, you got something else. To the point where now, I mean, we got a pope that brought a South American idol into the church to worship.
Really?
He did. The Pachamama. He brought the South American, and he.
I don't know what that is.
It's kind of like a South American god, Pachamama.
Why would he do that?
Good question. But he did.
Did he have an explanation for why he did it?
Yeah, it's kind of a weasel-worded thing. All religions are just as good as one another. But, if that's his contention.
He shouldn't be the Pope.
No. I
How
mean,
can he be the Pope and say all religions are just as good?
we all worship demons. So, yeah, there's the Pachamama. There you go.
So he brought that in.
Yeah, into the Vatican. Then the hierarchy even worshipped. They had a ceremony around it outside.
What?
So, well, that constitutes apostasy.
Yeah.
That's an apostasy.
Yeah.
All right.
Worshipping false gods.
Yeah, that's number one on the Mosaic hit list.
Yeah.
Moses goes up on the mountain, he comes back down, people worship him with a golden calf.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so you can't do that. And for me, that's a departure from. That's called apostasy.
Right.
It's a falling away from it, and the very nature of apostasy means that you have to be part of it to fall away from it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an inside job.
So what, do you think there's a motive behind these things?
I don't think probably.
What do you think it is?
I don't know. But it isn't good. I think we're looking at a world where, and this is in the next film I'm going to try and tackle this question, that there are big realms, spiritual realms. There's good, there's evil, and they are slugging it out for the souls of mankind. And my question is, why are we even important? Little old flawed humanity, why are we important in that process? Where the big realms are slugging it out. And I think there's bigger things at play here. And institutions that purport to touch on the divine are necessarily going to be affected by that slugfest that's going on between good and evil.
Right.
And
sometimes it gives up ground.
yeah, and maybe not on purpose.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some deception involved, or self-deception.
Co-opted.
Like every morning when I wake up, I actually pray that I don't deceive myself. Because it's like, your mind is a very funny place. I mean, there's, I've always said, it's your second thought and your first action that you're responsible for. Your first thought, throw it away.
Right. But upon consideration,
Yeah.
the second thought is what you're responsible for.
Yeah.
That's the difference between first degree and second degree murder.
There you go.
Right? Right?
Right there.
First degree, like, I'm plotting this out. And we take that into consideration when we sentence people.
Sure.
Like, if you're a person who you're all of a sudden you're in a fight with a guy, you didn't expect it, and you stab him and kill him, second degree murder.
Yeah.
But if you're like, I'm going to kill this motherfucker, I'm going to find out where he is, and I'm going to go get him, first degree.
Sure. I planned a lot of murders in my life. Yeah, in your head, you plan the murder and you think, oh, that's not a very good idea. I think I could get away with it.
Right. It's the second thought. Yeah. That is interesting that we take that into consideration.
Yeah.
That we do. Like if you had time to think about it, you're a different kind of person. The person that acts in the act.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're in your
Act
animal.
of passion. Yes.
And I found this out. I actually spent a long time in my animal brain, which is a very horrible place to be. And
When you say that, what do you mean by you spent a long time in your animal brain?
you're in flight or fight
Right.
all the time. You don't even sleep. It's like really not a good place to be. And if anybody looks at you the wrong way, you want to bite them.
Yeah.
And sometimes you say and do things that are socially unacceptable. And, I went and got a brain scan by this guy called Daniel Amen, who's this brain guy. He's against all psych meds and stuff, but he thinks like, let me have a look at your brain. And he put a radioactive tracer in me. Whoa. And to photograph my brain.
Right. MRI, right?
Yeah, he works with a lot of football players and guys who've got brains. But, so he looked at my brain and he was like, and he opens the file and I'm in there with the guy and he looks up and he goes, are you okay? And he goes, first he went like this. And I said, what? And he went, you okay? Like that. And I said, yeah, I think so. And he came over and he sat next to me, but very slowly and cautiously. He said, no, you're not. And I said, what do you mean? He says, you got the worst case of PTSD I've ever seen. And I said, you mean like even worse than guys in war and shit like that? He says, yeah. And he said, you're not. Jesus Christ. And I was like, I started to well up. It was like, oh boy. And it was, he had a very miraculous and great remedy for it, which was to eat a bunch of fish oil, vitamin B complex, and get into a hyperbaric chamber for 40 sessions. But make sure you do at least 2 or 3 a week.
Oh.
It fixed my head.
Really?
Yeah, it got me out of that wacky path.
So it was something to do with nutrition and oxygen and
Yeah. And your brain is neuroplasticity. He explained neuroplasticity to me and how, okay, you can get brain damage and like holes in your head and all, concussion. I played rugby. I've been knocked out on the field a couple of times,
that explains a lot. Yeah.
And so it actually, you can actually heal the holes in it. They look like Swiss cheese. It's like horrible. There's a lot of these football players get like that too. Poor guys. I mean, they get depressed. And,
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hormonal imbalance, pituitary glands fucked up.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Not producing testosterone or human growth hormone correctly.
That's correct.
Yeah, depression, low energy.
Yep.
Irritability.
Irritability might kill somebody.
Mhm.
Terrible.
Yeah.
And it's just not socially acceptable. Plus, I don't want to go to prison.
Yeah. Well, the rugby, I bet that's a giant factor.
Yeah, I played from like 13 to probably in my late teens, and you get knocked around.
100%. Yeah, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
No helmet. No.
But people don't realize that even shots to the chest cause brain damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what people are realizing now.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and like I'm addicted to UFC, right? I love it. But I know that these guys are, I feel kind of sorry for them.
I do as well. Yeah.
And one of the guys, I knew one of the guys fairly, and usually I'm pretty immune to but like, he was in there and he was fighting against Volkanovski and Brian Ortega, and he was gas-handed to him in one fight. He almost got him a couple of times, but like,
Yeah, he almost submitted him twice.
yeah, I know. But because I knew Brian, it was like my child. It was like my son was in there. I almost started crying. I was like, and it got to me. I was like, I should probably feel like this about all these guys, but I don't know them as well.
It becomes a problem for me when I'm friends with a guy. And then also I see when they're on the tail end of their career and they can't take shots anymore. And then when you talk to them, you recognize the speech patterns are slurring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I met Muhammad Ali when he was in the chair,
Oof.
And I don't know if I could even tell this story. What he said was so funny. But he was still in there and he was still a little devil.
Mm.
And he was like, and he was still fucking with people.
Of course.
But it was like, I can't tell you.
You can't?
No, man.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
footnote it. Tell me later.
I'll tell you later. It's fun. but it was my assistant, you know. What he said to my assistant was like so funny. And then he said it, and we all went like, whoa. And then I looked at him and he just, he was laughing his ass off. So he was still all in there, but it was hard. I guess he had the damage being punched.
Yeah, trauma-related Parkinson's disease.
Yes.
Very common for
Oh,
fighters.
God. No.
Yeah.
It's not good. No. I got knocked out in a fight when I was like 20. And it was like knocked out. Like, and it was, I woke up in the hospital. Not good.
No. Well, a few of those will explain a lot.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And we didn't know that, back then. That's why it always drives me crazy in a movie when someone gets hit over the head with a gun and knocked out, and then 5 minutes later they're fighting and they're fine.
Or shot in the arm. You know, they kill you. That always makes me laugh too, but we used to do it.
Well, you kind of have to, right?
Yeah,
It's like part of the whole thing of telling a movie. You gotta.
sure. I mean, Michelle Cocker even brains Mark Wahlberg with a fire.
Yeah.
Point.
Yeah.
You know,
Brains him, shoots him.
oh yeah,
It's
he's a
lot.
cockroach. You can't kill him. It takes a lot more. You'll find out.
Yeah. But people used to think that concussions were something you recover from. Like, no big deal. You get a concussion, take a break for a little while, you'll be fine. You might not be fine.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
I got a concussion at my daughter's wedding. This is really weird, okay? So she's getting married. Married a great guy. They got a great family. And a buddy of mine from Australia comes to the wedding. And he goes, he comes up and I go to hug him. And he ducks down and he comes up and he puts his shoulder into the point of my chin. The guy weighs 240. And he puts his shoulder into the point of my chin and knocks me the fuck out.
Jesus Christ.
I'm like, and like for the next 4 months, I'm messed up. I have to get like a guy to work cranial sacral, fix me up and stuff like that. It really messed me up.
Fucking Australians.
Yeah, there you go.
Wild folks.
Worse than Germans. Yeah.
Wild like prisoners.
Yeah. Wild. Prisoner of Mother England.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So this story that you want to tell about good and evil, like, do you have a script or is it just a thing in your head? What is it?
Yeah, it's the resurrection story. But it's not linear because you can't really. It's hard to understand. So you've got to be put in a framework where you answer a few other questions as well, and you have to juxtapose the event itself against everything else, so that it makes some kind of sense in a bigger picture, which is a hard thing to do. And that's what my brother and I about. And a guy called Randall Wallace, plus my brother and I, took us 6-7 years to write it.
So are you doing this with historians as well? Are you trying to make it? Yeah.
Historical stuff. Well, I regard the Gospels as history. It's verifiable history. Some people say, "Oh, it's a fairy tale." He never existed, but he did. And there are other accounts, verifiable historical accounts outside the biblical ones that also bear this up, that yes, he did exist. And the other aspect of that is that all the evangelists, the apostles who went out there, every single one of those guys died rather than deny their belief. And nobody died for a lie. Nobody.
Right.
So that's part of what I'm doing. Showing nobody dies for a lie.
Yeah. Well, the resurrection is the one that is the most difficult for people to swallow.
Yes.
That's the one that requires the most faith.
The most belief, resurrection.
Yeah.
Who gets back up 3 days later after he gets murdered in public? Who gets back up under his own power? Buddha didn't do that shit.
Right.
So,
you believe that was a real event?
yeah, I do. Yeah.
What brought you to that belief? Is it something you've always had, or is it something you studied it and you come to this conclusion because of the historical accounts?
Yes. I think as a child, one accepts things on faith because, we were raised by people who are nice too and they believe it. And my dad was a pretty smart guy. He was like Mensa smart, like real smart. Like back in 1968, he won Jeopardy, right? And then
Really?
they brought all the Jeopardy winners back, and he played all the winners, and he beat all of them too. So he had a mind like a steel trap, and his memory was practically photographic. My memory is pornographic, but his was like, I don't have that kind of mind.
Right.
But I'm more like he did math, and I can't add. But so as a child, you learn these things and you accept them on faith. And I still have that faith, but as I got older, I came to a reading intellect and reading and putting things together in accounts, and then occurrences like in my own life. I mean, just recently they verified the Shroud of Turin. Have you seen that?
I've been reading about it, and I know that there's some contention, there's some discussion and debate about it, but they used to think that it was only a couple hundred years old.
Yeah.
And now they've changed that.
Yeah, they said no, it's back then.
They also don't understand how it was made, which to me is very fascinating, because it's not paint. It's not, they don't know what caused the image itself and how that technology would have even been available a couple thousand years ago.
An intense light, atomic. So it was almost like a photographic imprint on a piece of cloth.
Yeah.
And
It's wild. Pull that up. Pull the Shroud of Turin up.
oh yeah.
It's wild to look at.
Oh, yeah.
It's so interesting.
And you can see it, that it depicts a first century Hebrew male, because the hairstyle was from the first century, and a Hebrew hairstyle. But he was about 6 feet tall, that he was completely scourged all over his body. He was crucified.
The one on the left, the one on the right is just like an artistic rendition.
Yeah, that's the face.
Yeah, click on that one, the face. The face, yeah, that's good enough. Get
Yeah.
that large. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. Scourged, beaten, cracked, the wounds on the thorns, the hands, the feet, and the scourging. And the hairstyle was from the first century. And the pollens that they found in the cloth were from that region.
Yeah.
Also, the weave was a first century weave that was typical. And another guy, an archaeologist who I knew, who actually translated the Passion into Aramaic, told me that if you look close, you can see that the image of the Tiberius coin marks on the eyes. Now, I don't know if that's real or not. I've never actually checked that, but that there's images of Tiberius on the coin.
So they would put the coins over the eyes?
Yeah. So that would date it. But they have now verified that it does actually go back to that time period. For a while, they were testing pieces that had been repaired in the 13th
Right.
century.
Right. What is the latest on that, James? Do you see,
But I have
two different articles done within the last 6 months?
opposite, of course.
You didn't know which one sounded the most accurate. Well, it's such a crazy thing to do and try to verify. Like, what are you saying? You're saying that this is really the shroud that Jesus was covered in? So you're saying Jesus historically absolutely did exist, and we think that this is the shroud that covered him. That's just that alone. See, incredulity, people just immediately their hackles raised. Like, wait a minute. And they just, instead of like looking at it objectively, they almost always want to look at it from a point of view of disproving it immediately, dismissing it immediately. But
That's science, isn't it? You play the devil's advocate.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Go for it.
Are you aware of Graham Hancock?
Oh, no.
Graham Hancock is sort of a historian that has a very he's got a series on Netflix. He's a fascinating guy, and his career started because he was investigating these accounts in Ethiopia of the Ark of the Covenant, and that they believe the Ark of the Covenant is in this one church that's protected by all these monks that wind up getting cataracts and radiation disease and sickness. And they think that it's because they're protecting this Ark of the Covenant, this actual thing, that it's an actual physical thing that's there.
And if you touch it, you get zapped.
Yeah, and that even being in his presence fucks these people up.
Maybe. Who knows? I mean, it's got to be someplace, right? They buried it. They lost track of it.
Yeah.
But, man, it used to be And all the stories are, if you even touch it, you fall over,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because it was instructed electrically somehow.
Yeah, like what is that? What's in there? I don't know. Why is it giving people cancer if they're really protecting it?
I think it's the actual structure of the container it's in that is the problem. That's my thought on it. I could be wrong. But I think inside it, they have things from like when Moses was like manna and, you know, stuff like that they managed to keep from, like, for example, they say that like Golgotha, the place of the crucifixion, it's called Golgotha, the place of the skull, because that's where Adam's head is buried.
Really?
Yeah, and that is also perhaps the same place. And it tells you it's kind of in the same area where Abraham almost sacrifices Isaac. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
And it's and the cross, when in any artistic depiction, at the foot of the cross, underneath it is the skull, representing the skull of Adam.
Huh.
That's interesting.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
That's the skull of Adam, huh?
Yep.
Wow.
Place of the skull, memory, myth, and the chapel of Adam.
What did you find in the Shroud of Turin, Jamie?
Both those articles just asked like one person, like one researcher thought it was, another researcher based off of their research said it wasn't.
Can you put it to the one that thought it was?
So the one who thought it was is like a
Does
nuclear
date
researcher.
A nuclear researcher, Jesus
The other
Christ.
one was like a AI artist from Brazil. So I don't know who has the most.
So it says, study published in the journal Heritage. The authors conducted dating work on a sample from the shroud, coming to the conclusion that it may be a 2,000-year-old relic. The shroud, which has long been the subject of scrutiny, features a faint image of a man. Some believe it's the body of Jesus miraculously imprinted onto the cloth. While the latest study does not discuss the question whether or not the artifact was indeed Jesus' burial shroud, specifically, the authors did find its age is roughly consistent with the time. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, isn't the Smithsonian guy all for it? I don't know. Maybe that's him. But, yeah. There's for and against. There's always.
Yeah, always. It's just,
But the image.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah. Whatever it is crazy. And the fact that they don't know how they made it is also pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It's not a painting.
No.
And then not exactly sure how they even came about.
It had to have been some kind of intense life.
The thought was that even trying to replicate something like that today would be incredibly difficult to do.
Sure. It's like an X-ray vision.
Yeah.
It's like an X-ray. That's what you really see it in the negative only.
Right. Right. It's like a negative. Yeah.
Hey, but that's not the only reason. I think there's other logical reasons why I believe. So,
Like what are those?
okay. In your own life, the results you get from actually appealing to a power greater than yourself, you know. And I mean, I don't think it's any secret. I am flawed in the fact that I am by nature born an alcoholic. I did drugs, I did alcohol, so, and there was nothing that could stop me from doing that. Nothing. So I was really kind of you're on a downhill run. So I regard the fact that I was able to appeal to something greater than myself to help me and actually stop me doing that. I think that's a miracle. It is. For me, it is. And for many. You know, so.
Well, that is the thing about AA, right? It's that part of the whole process is appealing to a higher power.
Sure. It's spiritual.
Yeah.
Because you're suffering with spiritual malady.
Yeah.
So it's a spiritual appeal. And that's the essence, I think, of why it works. Because you can't explain it otherwise. I mean, you kind of can. But I think what you're being asked to do is to think about other people and other things more than yourself. because it's kind of an ego disease.
Yeah.
So if you
That is the problem with addiction, right? It's very narcissistic.
very
You're constantly thinking about yourself and what you need.
Mhm.
I need a drink. I need a bump. I need I need something.
sure, I need it,
Yeah.
and no matter what you need, it's never going to be enough.
Right. Right.
So you actually have to appeal to something outside that you consider bigger than yourself, which instantly kind of pushes you more in the direction of humility.
Yes.
because you're not the center of the universe anymore,
Right.
and that you can't do it. And the first step in any of that sort of stuff is accepting that you are powerless over it. That's the most powerful step you can do, is that you're powerless. When you realize that, you're like, okay,
Yeah.
there's fuck all I can do about this. I have to appeal to something better than me. And that to me is a miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a very uniquely human thing, the ability to course correct, and also just the concept of addiction in the first place.
Sure.
You know, it's a very uniquely human thing that we all know there's dark roads our mind can go down. And then we wonder, like, what is the purpose of these dark thoughts?
Mhm.
What is the purpose of this destructive behavior that we're all prone to in some way, shape, or form?
What is the purpose of everything?
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
I mean, why am I here? What's the meaning of this?
Yeah.
I'm looking for purpose, and what is it we're here for? I think, we have to leave some stuff, but you have to leave some good stuff. You can leave plenty of bad stuff, and and we're all prone that way. I often think about, the human race as a whole. You think about guys like Stalin or Hitler or
Mhm.
Chairman Mao, and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be sharing a cell in the afterlife with those guys.
Right.
I don't know where I'll be on the ladder, but
Depends on how you end up, right?
well, that's it.
Yeah.
It really is. It's like, and we're allowed to make mistakes, and we do. We are so flawed, and I'm more flawed than anyone. But it's something that I think, and it's pretty safe to say I'm in the third act now. You're in act 2, right? Gesundheit. But I'm in the third act. So you have to think about the other side.
Yeah.
Think about what comes next. Is there a next? Yes, there is. I believe there is. And I think it's depends on how you live now. And the beauty of believing is that even for your transgressions, you can be forgiven. And you can be redeemed. But it's all up here.
Right. It's the true acceptance and understanding of what you've done and what you should do.
Sure. You have to look at yourself honestly.
Yeah.
Absolutely honestly. You have to be able to accuse yourself and understand that it's a great deal of mercy involved in the fact that I believe that God sent his son down to tell us, okay, I'm going to ransom you people from your fallen nature, and I'll give you a roadmap on how to do it. And people do it. There's even people that do it that I've never even heard of. Some guy in the jungle someplace, I'm sure.
Right.
Because the Creator is above the law. I mean, it's an interesting fact to note that the first canonized saint, you know who it was?
No.
The first ever confirmed canonization as a saint was Dismas. You know who Dismas was?
No.
He was the thief on the cross next to Jesus.
Oh.
And he says to him, you're going to be okay. This day, you'll be with me. Unbaptized, criminal, all that stuff. So,
Wow.
the lawmaker is above the law. So there's a lot of mercy.
What about people that never experienced Christianity? What about the
That's what I'm saying.
uncontacted
Yeah,
people?
That's right. That's what I'm saying. Some
Yeah.
guy in the jungle.
Yeah.
It's been known that it's called invincible ignorance because they don't know what the truth is.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible that they can be saved as well.
So, what are your thoughts on evolution?
The Darwin thing?
Yeah.
I don't really go for it.
No?
Yeah. Ice Age, dinosaurs, what did they turn into? I mean, things became extinct at some point. I don't think I was some kind of legless thing that crawled out of the ocean. I don't think I came from that. I think I was created.
Do you think other things were legless things that came out of the ocean? Do you think like multi-celled organisms came out of single-celled organisms and there was some sort of a natural selection and random mutation and it led to everything else but us?
Sure, look at gain of function.
Right.
You can make stuff happen. And I'm sure stuff did happen. But I think it's all part of creation. I think it's all ordered. I think anything left to itself without some kind of intelligence behind it will devolve into chaos. And so that there has to be some big intelligence that orchestrates everything. Not that we don't have chaos in the world, but I think that's what I'm making.
But what do you think separates us from all the other creatures?
Wow. I think we have a soul. We're created with a soul. And I went to a restaurant last night. It was a steakhouse in Austin. And it was interesting because all the pictures on the wall are pictures of animals that look resentful, like cows and steers staring at you, looking angry as you rip into a steak. But I just believe we are higher than those creatures because we have a soul, we have an intellect above theirs, and we aspire to higher things. We have aspirations,
Right.
And this is why people drink and smoke and do dope and all this kind of stuff. It's because they're looking for a spiritual experience. They're looking for, like they actually call alcohol spirits. I mean,
Right.
They're looking for something higher. And I think we all have that yearning in that we want to be happy and we want to be at peace and we want everything to be hunky-dory. So there's this yearning inbuilt in all of us for that, to aspire to something greater. And that's why we're inspired by stories, I think, because it's like, hero stories. Joseph Campbell's stuff, The Hero of 1,000 Faces and stuff. It's like, these stories inspire us. I was at a party the other day in Tennessee. And you think, Tennessee, what's going to happen there? It's going to be squeal like a pig. No. Man, there's some people live in Tennessee. Sure. But like amazing people. And I found myself in a conversation with 4 tier 1 dudes, all of who did something extraordinary. And it was that Tom Slattersly guy, it was the Black Hawk Down guy. There was Sean Ryan, you probably heard of this guy.
Friend of us.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
There was a guy called Christian Craighead. You know who that guy is?
No.
Whoa. And then there was Eddie. They wrote a book about him.
Eddie Gallagher?
Yeah, Eddie Gallagher. I was talking to 4 of these guys at the same time, and I didn't know who do you even talk to. But their stories are amazing, especially. And the one guy I ended up talking to was an SAS guy, British SAS, and he just looks like a bank teller. But he did something extraordinary and incredibly brave, and with no regard for himself, only regard for other people. And it was like, whoa, you hear these stories and it's sort of just like, it pumps you up. You think, could I do that? Could I be that person? I don't know if I could. I don't, in a way, I don't even want to ever find out because you have to be in an extreme situation.
Right.
But hearing about other people and how they behave in situations that are difficult is very inspiring. So, it's there's so many of those stories around, and through history.
Well, that's another unique thing about human beings is that we learn from others in a very extraordinary way. And that's one of the reasons why we like stories, why we like myths and fables, because there's lessons you can apply to your own life without having to actually go through those things.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I made a film about that guy, Desmond Doss. You know, I don't know if you saw it. It was like Hacksaw Ridge. It was this film, and it was about a medic who figured, there's so much killing going on, he's going to go into the battlefield and save lives. And he didn't have a weapon. And he was in the worst place on earth. And he got a Congressional Medal of Honor because he kept going in to the worst place possible and dragging wounded guys out with no regard for himself. I mean, who does that kind of stuff?
Right.
And over again. He didn't just do it once. He did it hundreds of times. He finally got, you know, it was shrapnel and a bunch of other stuff, but he lived to be an old man. But wow. And it was just pure faith. You know? So, you know, those guys, those kind of stories inspire the hell out of me.
So, back to this idea of evolution. So, do you believe that evolution exists in animals? Or do you think there's some sort of a natural selection process, or do you think that it is all intelligent design?
Well, I think everything's true, right? And maybe things do move on and adapt and change through time, but I think that that's a function of an intelligence also. And I mean, look at the fires in LA. So what's that going to do? Going to give me a new house? Maybe. And
Or a new place to live?
yeah, something. Yeah, I'm just not totally convinced. I feel it in my, and I can't really, I'm sorry, I can't intellectually tell you why I don't believe in evolution, but I don't. It's just a feeling. I don't think I was some ape, or I don't think my ancestors were. I think they had to be pretty smart to survive.
So what do you think all these pre-human hominids are that they keep discovering?
Like, tell me what a pre-human hominid
Like
is.
Australopithecus,
Oh, right.
or some of the other human-like creatures that never made it, like Denisovans, Neanderthals.
Yeah, stuff like that. Okay, well, they've got something called Zinjanthropus. You remember this?
No.
Zinjanthropus. He looked kind of like this. But it was like they looked at it and they did some core samples on it. And it was put out there by people advocating evolution. And they discovered that it was a human skull attached to the jaw of an ape.
Oh, I do remember.
So there's a hoax.
Yeah, there's been some hoaxes.
Yeah.
But there's also been real stuff.
Really?
Yeah. You don't think so?
Well, maybe.
Well, what do you...
Well, you know, like, I don't know, tell me.
Well, what was that one that we looked at the other day? That was one of the first pre-humans that buried their young, or buried their dead rather. It was a Homo Ninaldi. What was it? Remember that? I can't remember how to say it, but Naledi. Yeah, the pre-human hominid, very small creature that buried their young, or buried their dead rather. I keep saying buried their young. They buried their dead. You know, Australopithecus. There's a bunch of different, you know, Elysian skeletons. There's a bunch of different pre-human hominids.
Yeah, maybe they're monkeys.
Yeah. Well, they're similar to us, just not where we are.
Yeah.
They're on the road to becoming what it means to be a human being.
I don't know.
What do you think those are?
I don't know. They could be animals, or they could be like, look at today. I mean, you can get some mosquito can bite you, and your kid can be born with a malformed skull or something like that. You know, they have those, you know.
Yeah, but this is like a genetic thing. Like they've mapped the genome of these creatures.
Oh, they're
different. Yeah.
Well, I don't know how to explain it, so I don't know.
But you do think that human beings were created by
Sure.
God?
I do, yeah.
When do you think that happened?
When? Oh, probably, and not that long ago.
Really?
No.
But what do you mean by not that long ago?
Probably only about 8,000 years ago.
Really? Yeah. So what do you think things like Göbekli Tepe are when they find these constructions that are carbon dated to 11,000 plus years old?
I question it.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that makes things a lot simpler.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of money in you know, claims.
Really? Water's there. Yeah. Well, carbon dating seems to be pretty rock solid studies.
Yeah.
I mean, the science behind radiocarbon dating and detecting carbon isotopes. It's like, that's pretty legit.
Yeah. I don't know. You can't square it.
Yeah. But you don't have to.
And I don't have to on it. And
Yeah.
what difference is it going to make?
Yeah, that's the thing. It doesn't make a difference in terms of your experience in this life on Earth.
No.
Like you can have your faith and your ideas and live a great life from beginning to end, and it might not suit you to really ponder evolution and all the puzzles and problems.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
And I just like, I look at all sorts of stuff like that. The iceberg melting and water overflowing.
It's not.
Ever have a glass full of ice and watch it melt? Did you ever see the glass flow over?
No. Yeah.
A hot greenhouse, whatever.
Well, there's a lot of horse shit that's involved in climate change for sure. I've studied that, and I've had many discussions over the last 4 years. The problem with anything is that once a narrative gets established, and there's a profit attached to the solution of that narrative.
Yes.
And that's green energy and green energy bills, and there's businesses that are wrapped around there. And then there's also this fear that they love to pump into people about climate change, that, they terrify the shit out of young people, that we're going to destroy the world, climate change, you must act now. And then you become beholden to the political party that is espousing these ideas. And then your enemy is the deniers of this science, even though you don't even understand the science.
Yeah.
And did you see the Washington Post article that they published recently about temperature change on Earth?
No.
Well, there's what they realized is over the last, X amount of thousands of years that the temperature on Earth is plummeting.
Yeah.
And it's dropping. And then when they look at the dips, this is the most important thing for anybody that's really freaked out about climate change. There's no static temperature of Earth ever.
Mm-hmm.
There's never been a time where it maintains a temperature until human beings came along and fucked it all up.
Mm-hmm.
That is just not real.
Mm-hmm.
Before human beings ever existed, if you trust these core samples, there's been a giant rise and fall and this constant dip. There it is.
Yeah.
Scientists have captured Earth's climate over the last 485 million years. Here's a surprising place we stand now. Look at the dip at the end. Well, that's where we are.
Yeah.
That's reality.
Okay.
And then if you look at the course of history, you look at the rise and fall, like, it's never a straight line. Way before human beings ever existed, if you include these silly people, way before human beings had ever existed, there's always this rise and fall. And this idea that the whole thing is based on carbon emissions from human beings is total bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not true. We might be having an effect, but we're having a small effect, a very small effect. And the other things are completely outside of our control, including solar activity, the distance between the Earth and the Sun.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of factors. There's all sorts of factors involving natural activity, like volcanic emissions, which devastate. The entire human race was knocked down to a few thousand people at one point in time because of the Toba volcano.
Oh my God. No life.
Yeah, no light for years.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. And the people that survive are fucking barbarians.
Yeah.
The most savage. And then it takes a long time before they can figure out civilization again after that.
It's like dinosaurs. They just stop.
Mm-hmm.
So what are they evolving to?
Chicken,
I guess.
birds, raptors. Well, they think a lot of dinosaurs have feathers now.
Yeah.
That's the newest thing.
Maybe.
You don't think so?
I don't know. I need to take a pee.
Okay, let's take a break. Let's take a break.
I need to take a pee. It's a nice picture.
That's got to be a moment in your head where you just like every now and then just go, fuck.
Yeah. It is fun. Yeah. But it was a good picture. The only thing it was okay. I just can't look bad. And I didn't have anything, no grooming in it, so I tried my best to not look too bad.
Yeah, you talk about humility. Like, what gives you more humility than being publicly humiliated?
Sure.
Yeah.
Public humiliation. And it's, you know what? For most people, it is their number one fear. Sure. Is public humiliation.
Yeah. Public speaking, and because of that, public humiliation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
Because we're so concerned about other people's opinions of us.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're not sure
callous
of our
to
own
it now.
opinions of it. Well, you've been through a lot.
Well, so have you.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, I think they were giving you a grilling once for taking horse wrong.
Yeah. Funny.
Yeah.
Funny how that works.
Funny how that works. Funny how that does work.
Yeah. What's really funny is how that was a part of the demise of mainstream media.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Philomena, founder of Kin Apparel.
This doesn't make the
I
argument.
love my natural hair, but not what hoodies and hats were doing to it.
They seem to
So I made my own satin lined hoodie.
100%.
And, you think,
Hell
well,
no, that ain't 12 rounds already.
Because of money. I think this is what we were talking about before, that there is good and evil.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes it manifests itself in a very clear and obvious way.
Man,
And I
that's
think
12
that's what
rounds.
that was. That was evil. That was putting people's lives second and putting money first.
well, I don't know why Fauci's still walking around.
How is that guy still walking around?
I don't get it.
If just people understand the history of the AIDS crisis and what that guy did back then.
Did you read that book?
Yeah.
Yeah, I read
Yeah.
the book. I listened to it.
Yeah. I did
I
too.
drove up to San Francisco and I listened to it and I had road rage.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, whoa, how is he still there?
First of all, people that don't believe it, how come RFK Jr. didn't get sued?
Yep.
How come there's no lawsuits?
Mhm.
If there was lies, there would be lawsuits.
No, but that's
He'd
right.
be publicly humiliated. Instead, they kept that book off bestseller lists. That book sold millions of copies.
I know.
They hid it. That's when you find out that bestseller lists are actually curated. It's not really bestseller.
It's censored. It's all
Yeah.
everything's censored.
But that book is an accurate depiction of what Anthony Fauci did during the AIDS crisis, which probably was an AZT crisis.
Yeah, I
It wasn't
know.
an AIDS crisis.
I mean, it's fairly incontrovertible now that he's fooling with gain of function.
100%.
And, it's, what is that? Why is he still around?
Right,
Or at least free.
right. And no repercussions.
Yeah, whatever happened to that story where, the wombat and the weasel got together and they
Yeah.
were horsing around and the bat just on with a golden shower, it's like, and all of a sudden it was in a wet market,
Yeah.
very wet market, you got,
Complete total horseshit. And
totally.
the scientists that we're supposed to trust
Yeah.
are pitching that horseshit.
It was like the AIDS thing. Some green monkey bit a
Mhm.
Martha Stewart on the ass, and he went around the world and got everybody sick, and it was like, ridiculous.
If you want to go through the AIDS rabbit hole, look up a guy named Peter Duesberg.
Oh yes, I know.
Yeah.
I read that book.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
He's telling the truth. This is the fucking COVID crisis times 1,000. Yeah. I had him on the podcast way back in the day. It was one of the earlier guests that I had. It was like way back in 2010. It was one of the first times I got openly attacked for someone being on the podcast. There's like, blood is on your hands. I'm like, first of all, no, it's not. It's 2010. Who's dying of AIDS? 0 people. So stop. It's not blood on your hand. Like, if this guy's correct, he's a tenured professor at the University of California, Berkeley, who is like, his work on cancer is, everybody thinks it's groundbreaking work. Brilliant doctor, but he was a heretic. He was a guy who stood outside of Fauci's doctrine and the narrative, and he said, I don't believe that HIV is what's causing this, when all these people that are having these immune systems are all heavy drug users. He's like, I think this is a disease of a decimation of the immune system due to heavy drug use, and then on top of that, you're prescribing this chemical, this AZT, that kills people. They stopped using it for chemotherapy because it was killing them quicker than cancer was.
I was in the Sydney Theatre Company in the 90s, and I was going to a funeral once a month of friends. They were all dying. It's crazy in the 80s and 90s.
And they were all getting AZT.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, the ones that were getting AZT, even the ones that were asymptomatic, like Magic Johnson, they were giving Magic Johnson AZT. You got to stop taking it.
Yeah.
Because it was making him sick. It was killing him.
Yeah, I read it. It's even with RFK's book. And he's an amazing guy. People say, oh, he's kooky, he's crazy. He's not.
He's not.
He's one of the most erudite. They say he's an anti-vaxxer. He's not.
He's not.
He's a very shrewd. He's never lost a case. I don't think. when he brings something to suit. I don't think he's ever been defeated. But that book is not just him. It's him and about 1,000 highly qualified scientists and physicians commenting on the whole situation. So when you read it, it's a pretty convincing document. And you're right, nobody sued him for it.
Yeah.
You know, pretty scary.
Well, not only do they not sue him, their response is to try to ignore it. They don't want to debate him on it. They don't want to do anything. They want to just ignore it and hope it goes away. But it doesn't go away. And the more people talk about it, the more people read it. And when you do read it, you go, if this is true, what the fuck is going on? And how is that monster still loose?
Yeah.
And he seems like a monster. The way he talks about things, he just seems... But first of all, there's so many instances of him lying. There's so many, like, where he said one thing, 2 years later, it turns out to be a lie. Said one, like, whether it is the natural thing, the mask thing, whether it's the natural spillover, you know, the lies about gain of function to Congress, you know. When he was lying to Rand Paul about whether or not they did gain of function research. Like, how is that not perjury? How is he not in trouble?
Yeah, it's more of a, other mysteries, you know.
Well, then the Biden administration is now talking about taking that guy and giving him the full pardon. So, yeah, fucking crazy.
Well, they might. They gave Hunter a pardon.
Yeah. But Hunter
didn't need a pardon. Was he indicted?
Well, I mean, he was in trouble for tax evasion. There's a lot of tax problems. He definitely did some uncool things. And then there's the Burisma thing. But the crazy thing about his pardon is it starts at the time of him being involved in Burisma. So it's from 2011 all the way to today. That's what he pardoned him. It's the biggest sweeping pardon that anyone's ever received ever. And Biden's pardoned more people than anybody ever too. He's already over 8,000 people pardoned.
A lot of criminals. Okay.
Yeah. Well, there's that, but then there's also people that like the kids for cash judges. You know, where they were locking up kids and putting them in child detention centers because they wanted money. They were doing it for kickbacks.
Yeah, I saw that.
Evil
Documentary.
Yeah, evil. Again, what we're talking about, good and evil. Yeah. Like these are real things, and rational the people that profess themselves to be intelligent and secular, they don't want to believe in good and evil. They don't think that they just think people do bad things. People have motivations to do bad things, but they don't want to believe in the concept of good and evil because these are biblical concepts.
They are,
right?
Yeah, and they've been around since the beginning.
And people want to pretend they're smarter than the people that sort of embrace these biblical concepts.
Right. Yeah, I think that doesn't even. Are we smarter than our kids? You know, I don't know.
Well, we are about some things, but we can't survive the way they did. Nope. They're obviously intelligent. Yeah. Just they didn't have access to information the way we do. But there's a difference between information and intelligence.
Sure. Yeah. I don't have many devices for information. I read books. I read mostly history books.
Yeah?
Oh, I got a recommended book to you.
Okay.
It's fascinating. And it's called The Frontiersman. And it's about a guy called Simon Kenton. You ever hear of this guy?
No.
And it was written by a guy who's now deceased. His name is Alan Eckert. And it is really about opening up Ohio and Kentucky and places like that with this guy, Simon Kenton, who was just an Irish immigrant. He wasn't much for farming and stuff, but he thought he killed a guy. And so he ran away because he thought he'd be indicted for some crime or something. And he ended up being this frontiersman. And it's a very interesting document because you get the history of what was going on at the time when the country was opening up between the settlers and the Indians, the Shawnee. One of the most brutal books I've ever read. Really? Oh, it's very well done. And it has a narrative, but it's reconstructed from kind of historical documents and letters and diaries and all this kind of stuff. So I think the guy took about 15 years to sort of compile all this stuff and write it. And the first half of the book is about this guy, Simon Kenton, and the second half is about Tecumseh, the chief. really great book. One of the most fascinating books I've read. You can't put it down.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like little chapters.
I'm gonna get that right now.
Yeah.
Have you ever read The Empire of the Summer Moon?
Nope.
The Empire of the Summer Moon is about the Comanche,
Oh yeah.
and it's all about the settling of this area.
Right.
It's fucking incredible. And again, one of the most brutal books ever. So this is The Frontiersman.
The Frontiersman by Alan Eckert. Yeah.
I'm gonna check that right now. So that I make sure that I have it.
Yeah. And it's all in little bite-sized chunks. And it actually, for a history book, it has this incredible narrative with heroes and villains and all the places. Very interesting.
I'm getting it right now.
Oh yeah. Don't read it before bed.
No?
No, it gets pretty dark.
Why are you so drawn to history?
I don't know. I think because maybe I'm trying to learn something. It's been about 80 years since the last big war.
Alan Eckert got it.
I think I just want to learn. I mean, my dad went to World War II. He went to Guadalcanal, right? Got bit by mosquitoes. He had malaria. Which is interesting to note that he used to take hydroxychloroquine and get malaria
Isn't that
attacks.
crazy?
And then when my doctor recommended I get it when I had COVID, they gouged me 800. It used to cost him $30. They wanted $800 for that. They were gouging.
Well, not only that, when Trump talked about it, then all of a sudden they demonized it.
Yeah, they laughed.
Yeah, which is crazy because it's an antivirus. It works. Yeah, it works on malaria. Yeah, and people can take it forever.
Sure, pregnant women can take it if they have the flu, and it doesn't hurt the baby.
Yeah.
But
But that's what's so bizarre about the time that we just went through, because there's more information now available to people instantaneously than ever before.
Yeah.
You look it up on your phone, you instantly know, oh, ivermectin, the guy who created it, won the Nobel Prize.
Yeah. 2014 or something. Yeah.
15, yeah, for using human beings.
Yeah.
So what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
Like, who's running this thing?
And it's harmless. And it wasn't made for horses. It was made for people. And then they use it for horses.
Right.
So
Well, it's like saying penicillin is for horses, because you use that on horses. Like, that's stupid.
they told me it was from Moby Grass.
That's what it was from, yeah. But I mean, there's a lot of medication that's used on animals too. You can't say it's a veterinary medication just because it's also used on animals.
No, that's true.
It's been used on, literally prescribed billions of times on human beings.
Yeah, it's like the stem cell stuff. They started using it on horses with emphysematic lung conditions, racehorses, because they would bleed. And they got the stem cells from the umbilical cords of their offspring, injected it into them, and it healed their lungs, which is part of my story. Because I smoked for 45 years. I couldn't stop. And I read this silly book by Alan Cross, not the little guy who, managed the village people in the cafe and the little but no, this other guy, Alan Cross. He wrote this book, and it's the only thing that made me stop. He worked like crazy. But the book made me stop. Like, what book made me stop? What is the book? It was a book called The Easy Way to Stop Smoking. And it's a silly title, right? And it's sad, my son gave it to me. He said, stop smoking, Dad. Here's this book. I left it on. I used to walk past the bookshelf and dumb book, dumb title. And then I finally, my doctor said, you have the first stage of disease. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Yeah, you gotta quit smoking. Yeah, I better read this book. So I read the book and I stopped. Right? So it was, I think it was like neuro-linguistic programming or something like that. You read it and you kind of self-hypnotize yourself, but it worked.
What did the book tell you?
It said, it didn't tell you that you were bad or, you're going to die. It didn't tell you all that sort of stuff. It was like, but they had a chapter where it says, okay, we focused on the negative aspects of smoking. Now we're going to talk about the good aspects of smoking in the next chapter. And then you turn the page and the page is empty. And it's just a trick, a mind trick. The whole thing was a mind trick, but it worked. And I don't know why. But it was sort of like self-hypnosis while you're reading the book. And it wasn't a negative thing, like, I gotta stop this, it's bad, I'm scared. It wasn't even that. In fact, if I hadn't had the stem cells afterwards, my lungs completely healed from that, by the way.
Did it do it intravenously?
Yeah, intravenous, and it gets stuck in your lungs. And
Was this Dr. Reardon?
Yeah, we talked. Yeah,
Yeah.
it worked.
Stem cells are incredible. And the fact that you can't get them the way they can get them in overseas, the way we can get it in Panama where Reardon has his clinic, and Tijuana.
They're getting better here.
They're getting better, but there's so much resistance because of the FDA.
Yeah, sure.
And the resistance is purely because of money. Again, it's an evil thing. It's not because they're not effective. It's not because they're dangerous. It's just because of money.
I think. And,
Yeah.
there's an agenda. I think, pharma wants to keep you on stuff. I
Yeah.
want to sell you something. So if there's a surefire cure for something, it's not necessarily hailed.
No. Well, and then there's also the problem of the media. The media is lockstep in with these businesses that are promoting these things.
Yes.
And they're not giving you information, they're giving you propaganda before they're giving you information. Propaganda is more important to them than information.
Yeah.
And that's just crazy. It's like, we're counting on you guys, and you fucked us. You fucked us for 4 years with this COVID thing, and now you expect us to listen to you about the fucking swine flu or the bird flu or whatever other thing you're trying to freak us out about, which always coincides with some sort of a political event. Like, here it is, the inauguration of the new president, and oh, look at this. There's a new disease.
What do we got now?
No.
Do you think there will be?
Well, there is. There's this fucking
H1 flu.
H5N1, whatever
I
it
thought it
is.
was bird flu.
One bird flu. One person died. One person in America. First person died. 65 years old with a bunch of comorbidities,
Yeah, okay.
which is usually what it is. But by the way, 65 people with a bunch of comorbidities die all the time of numbness. They die of anything. It's just like a car that's falling apart, and you run over a nail, and the nail killed the car. And that car was falling the fuck apart. Like the nail you ran over was the last nail in the coffin. But the thing was falling apart.
I got COVID from my gardener. And he had it. And then I got it. And I was like, grab the hose. I don't know. But it was, I knew the guy for 20 years. And we both went to the same hospital. And he died and I didn't.
Gee.
I think we both got remdesivir.
Yeah,
not good.
not good.
Not good.
How's his kidney failure?
I know. I couldn't walk for 3 months after I had that stuff.
Really?
Because it kills you. It kills you. That's why I'm wondering about you.
Oh, you should wonder about that guy. Well, meanwhile, they were trying to stop people from getting monoclonal antibodies.
Yeah.
Yeah. They restricted monoclonal antibodies, which is fucking insane because they wanted to promote that vaccine because they wanted to profit off of it, which brings us back into evil. Evil's real. It's real. Putting money over human lives is evil. It's a real thing, and there's a temptation to do it too, which is even more crazy.
I don't believe that there is anything that can afflict mankind that hasn't got a natural cure. I think that has to be, it just makes sense to me. Now, I couldn't prove that, but I just believe that. That there's got to be something that cures things. And I'll tell you a good story. I had 3 friends. All 3 of them had stage 4 cancer. All 3 of them don't have cancer now at all. And there's some serious stuff going on.
And what did they take?
They took some, what you heard they taken.
Ivermectin,
Fenbendazole.
Yeah, I'm hearing that a lot.
They got hydrochloride, something.
There's studies on that now where people have proven that
People
they've
drinking methylene blue.
Yeah, methylene blue, which was a fabric dye. Yeah, it was a textile dye. They found it has profound effects on your mitochondria.
Yep.
Yeah.
This stuff works, man.
There's a lot of stuff that does work, which is very strange because, again, it's profit. When you hear about things that are demonized and that turn out to be effective, you always wonder, well, what is going on here? How is our medical institutions, how have they failed us so that things that do cure you are not promoted because they're not profitable? That they can't control it. They don't have a patent on it, whether it's vitamin D and K2 and magnesium,
Well, yeah, I'm doing
zinc
all
and
that.
quercetin. I do all that stuff.
Did you do the breakup thing?
Yeah.
Me too. I lost.
I do all
like
that stuff.
30 pounds. Right.
It's fantastic.
I was talking to Dana, and he said, "Oh, yeah." And I said, "Yeah, I got to do something." because I'm like 5'10", 235, you know, that's too fast.
Yeah,
So I had to sort of lower it back some. Now I'm under 200, which is
that's great.
should be, you know. But and it was the breakfast stuff.
Mm-hmm. No, Gary's a national treasure.
Yeah,
And
Jump
you
in
get
the cold
shit on all over the place too.
Oh sure,
Yeah.
just going to sauna, but
Mhm.
I feel better.
Oh yeah. Oh, I do all that stuff. Yeah. Cold plunge, sauna. I'm ritualistic with it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it's part of my everyday life.
I hear your cold plunge is like 30, 40. I don't understand that though. Dude, 30, 40 degrees.
Yeah.
Whoa,
Yeah, it's cold.
that's hardcore.
Yeah, you get accustomed to it. It to me is not. I mean, it sucks. Every time I do it, I'm like, don't do it. Don't. There's like a part of me, it's like an inner bitch. It's like, oh, I don't have to do this. I didn't have to do this. But luckily, the general is stronger than the inner bitch. The general goes, shut the fuck up and get in there, and I just get in there every day. But
I do like 48. Man.
that inner bitch is always talking though. It never shuts up.
No.
Never shuts up. Don't ever think that it, like, even though I do it every day, anybody's like, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how I do it either, but I fucking do it. I make sure I do it. I'm the boss.
Do you do the sauna too?
Oh yeah.
The red light bed?
I have a red light bed. Yeah. I have a sauna, I have a red light bed, I have a hyperbaric chamber.
Wow.
I have everything.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Incredible.
I gotta get back. I feel
Oh,
like I got more holes in my head.
it's phenomenal for just overall recovery for everything. It's also been shown to lengthen telomeres. They did a study out of Israel. Yeah, they gave people a protocol over 90 days, these 60 sessions of 90 minutes over 90 days, and it's shown to lengthen telomeres and decrease your biological age. Okay. And you just feel fucking great.
That makes sense.
Yeah, you're flooding your body with oxygen. Most diseases, or a lot of them, come from a lack of oxygen. You know, your body not having enough oxygen is very bad for you.
I used to have a Qigong master. This is what kind of blows my mind about medicine and about ancient stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This guy is from Shanghai. He didn't speak much English, right? A little bit. His wife would translate for him. And he'd come in and he'd get like 20 French. Just get like pushing. I'm not. Okay. I made him food. He always gets back to it. Thank you now. All my people were other ones. He learned it from somebody. He can get better from now. But he was getting one time he was working and he was working on my lip. He said, he looked at him. And if you look at him, he looks away. And his wife engages you while he shuts you out. And then he gives you a little body mark to protect his all. But he knows everything. He knows he sees everything. He was an allopathic doctor first. He went to medical school. He could write your prescriptions for all that stuff. He was a doctor. And then he saw a Qigong master was old guy and people were around him getting cured because of statues. And he learned that on top of being an allopathic doctor. So one day he's at me on my back and he's pushing and I can feel my back and I'm at the wall and there's a poster of a film on the wall, you know, in my office. And I'm looking and I can see him in the background and he's like down like this, like, like kung fu pointing rays of energy at me. And he hit me, he started yelling at my organs, at my liver. Like, good, get out, you know, whatever. And I went up the wall and there was 8 inches of air in my feet. And I was up the wall. And I was like, whoa. And I looked at him and just died. I said, it's science. It's science? Yeah, it's science. And this priest was like, he was an old Jesuit. traditional guy. And he was a cross between Jimmy Stewart and Michael Clark. That's the way he sounded. And I said, this. He said, whoa, can you hear me? Like that. Yes, he did. And he said, that's all right. And he said, I have no troubles. Because it was within the realm of possibility. And then he said, split it. But, yeah, he just passed away. He was pretty old. There is a place that, I bought a comic for that here. Before the building that we bought was the Richfield on 6th Street. But before that, I was in the contract for another building. And this building was owned by Carl. The Carl was awful. Carl was, this is a documentary on it called Holy Time. And this guy was a gay porn star in a different place. He was a yoga instructor. Had a bunch of people in West Hollywood, and then eventually moved them all out to the house. But what this guy was doing, one of the things that he was doing to his disciples is he would do a thing called the knowing. They had to be chosen for it, they had to earn it, and when he would get them and bestow the knowing upon them, he would touch their head, and they would have this incredible experience that they said they contacted God. Now, all these people denounced him eventually, they left the cult, they all said he was a con man, this and that. They all talked about that experience, and they said it was the most profound experience of their life, because they really do feel like they're coming in contact with God. And it's like, what can a person, if a person truly believes, and this other person truly believes that they can do this to them, and they have this moment, and something does happen, what is that all? Do people have ways of pulling that out of you that we've lost track of, that we don't know? Even an evil person who's running a cult, manipulating people and exploiting people, still has this thing that he was able to do to them. But even after they admitted to this guy exploited them, they say that was the most profound moment of their life. That's interesting. Yeah, that thing. They had party trips that you can get. But it is that party trip that really is a party that connects you, at least temporarily with God. But there is a thing inside of us. And he said, and he's like, okay. And what he never done. And you need to call me. And I said, yeah, I wouldn't see you. I need to come to you. Okay.
So we had like some sort of a direct line with the energy.
Pretty neat. He could teach you martial arts. Like, without me. He did it first and second. We got him for a couple of weeks. He said, and I told him, so I'm going to make two swords. He was like, not crude, but like a hard martial art. So it wasn't Kyokushin. It's Japanese. It is? Yeah. But it's like, I didn't stick with it. But it was but he got this whole other approach of breathing, visualization. That would actually launch up the lower chakras and you could release the energy but it's about visualization. these about energy, pent up stuff, all that. So
There's got to be something to all that stuff. People have been trying for a long time. Yeah. It wouldn't be like for all these years, it's going to be something like
it keeps people young and healthy. They do it in China. You see,
Mhm.
Really? And so you just fall down. That's really right. It's like concept of this stuff. But, you know, I lift weights. I do some walking, stuff like that. Like, you to get your heart rate up and stuff. So, you know, I'm trying. I'm 69 years old. So it's like, just get 750.
Yeah.
I'm training myself up a little too much. And like, you know, I'm not good at
Yep. Not good in my 50s.
yeah, I'll 57, 50. Oh, yeah, that's right. It's like, I went down to Rio. It was just for like 2 years, you know.
You just got to keep going back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would go back.
That's the thing. It's just your body's just not going to feel the way it did when you're younger unless you consistently get therapy for that.
Yeah.
You're a good shape. Yeah.
I mean,
That's what I think. Just demand a lot and make sure everybody.
I think a lot of tonight when I find out whether I still have a home or not. You know?
Yeah.
So,
Well, if anything looks demonic, it's the fires in Los Angeles.
yeah.
I remember one time we were 100%.
If you can't breathe, I mean, come on.
If you can't breathe, or if the cars in front of you catch fire and the wind blows this way and all the cars catch fire and you can't get off the road because to the right of you is on fire, to the left of you is on fire, and the fire is coming up the highway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, people have died that way.
And it can happen in an instant.
Yep.
I got hung once by mistake. I was on a film set, and I had my neck in a noose, and I was directing the film. So I'm on a ladder, and I'm like, so I'll just be hanging here like this, man. And then the next thing I knew, I was waking up. I was on the floor. It was funny. So I found out what it was like to sort of go into the next realm. But of course, we did. I was fortunate enough to work with Horion Gracie 39 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, he'd just come from Brazil,
Well, I remember when you were doing.
and it was cool. But it was now my girlfriend does it, and she's like a purple belt. So I've learned.
Really?
Yeah, I've learned not to talk
Oh, she's a
back.
purple belt. You are a black belt. You're going to be a black belt.
Oh, she will.
You just got to stay on that path.
No, she is. She's obsessed with it. So,
Yeah.
and she's, you know, as I say, I don't talk back to her.
I think the purple belt is the hardest belt to get to
It is.
because it's just like in the beginning, you're just getting crushed.
Mhm.
That's jujitsu, especially for women. It's
Yeah.
so difficult. Like, man, you have to have real technique and you have to have a real understanding of what's going on.
She got a good mind, and I think she's like so.
Sometimes you let them win, though, right?
Yeah.
It's just like you got to walk away.
Oh yeah. Sometimes it's like,
You got to go, okay.
it's my second thought of my first act.
Yes, 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 yeah.
But she got the purple belt.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Good for her.
It's good for her.
Disadvantage.
Big dudes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, you know,
Yeah.
she's done some exceptional things I've heard. So it's like, yeah, it's pretty good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I didn't follow it up.
You can still do it.
I'm a more baseball bat gun kind of guy. You know? I'm in trouble. That kind of stuff.
Well, be careful with that in California. You
Yeah.
could wind up being in jail.
Yeah, that's true.
You wind up using it to protect yourself and they'll
Yeah.
lock you up,
Yes, it's.
which is also evil.
Mhm. Yeah, that happens a bit.
Yeah.
Hmm. Oh well, there's a perverse nature in our society right now with the law.
You know, when you look at your life now and you're on your third act, as you were saying,
Mhm.
like what do you look forward to these days? Is it creating things?
It's
Is it-
creation.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. It's about creation, and I figure I'm pretty average at most things, but I'm good at a couple of I know how to tell a story on film. I know how to do that. I don't know, that's a weird place to be, but I think a lot can be achieved by art and image. And you can convey a lot without actually having to say it. You can do things to affect people emotionally or spiritually, even without a profound, effective shot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that first shot in the Gladiator movie where he's running his hand over the wheat, right?
Mm-hmm.
With that music and stuff. Why does that work? I don't know. You can't explain it, but it works.
Well, Ridley Scott is a master.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a visionary human being.
Mhm.
He sees things.
He knows how to shoot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's really good. It's a valid pursuit, I think, in storytelling. If you can do that, every time he goes out there, it's eye candy. It's a feast for the eyes. You know?
Do you have different goals with like different projects? Like obviously, Flight Risk is entertainment. It's
Yes.
fun. It's
Pure
entertaining.
entertainment, yeah. And yes, different goals. And it was the other thing too is it's like we're living in a different time now in the film world. I mean, everything's upside down, and you have to compete in a medium where you have less time, less money. Do it fast, do it now. And I was able to take my time with stuff, but I had 22 days. And here you got to tell the story in 22 days. So I felt the challenge of being able to do that and being able to make something that really got people, like they could watch it and enjoy it, you know. And I'm glad you saw it. I'm glad you liked it. And that's all I want. I just want people to have a nice little ride, a fun ride, entertainment. But yes, you have different goals with things. I mean, the next thing I'm going to tackle is more profound for me. It's going to take more out of me.
This is the resurrection story.
Yeah. And I even had to change my entire life to do it.
How so?
You can't go into a project.
Right.
It's like you have to be fit for the fight. And yeah, so you have to spiritually prepare yourself for that. And that's going to take some sacrifice. And because, I profess this and I profess that. I'm not a great example of Christianity. I'm flawed and I make a lot of mistakes, but I have to try and be better somehow in order to go in and make that film. So what does that mean? I think I know what it means,
Well, one of the things that I thought was fascinating was reading and listening to Jim Caviezel talk about his experience playing Christ in your film.
Yeah.
It just truly changed that guy's
Jesus in films, right? And I never buy it. You can't quite buy it.
Right.
Something creeps in the color
Right.
that's not something's not right or discordant. And some of them are pretty good, but you never quite believe it all the way.
What was the Willem Dafoe movie?
Oh, that was a Scorsese film.
Right. What was that called?
The Last Temptation.
That's right. That's right.
Which, interestingly enough, I was in a hotel in the Savoy and I had food poisoning. I was near dead I ate a bad oyster in London. And I was dying in a hotel room. And I couldn't even leave. It was the worst. I think it was like salmonella or something. And I saw this cord on the side of the bed and I pulled it. And all of a sudden, a door opened up and a butler like Jeeves came in. He says, "Yes, sir." And I'm like, whoa. And I said, "I'm really sick." I said, "What do you think I should eat?" "Might I suggest some warm consomme and a cup of tea?" I said, "Okay." So this butler took care of me in this hotel. But while I was there, Scorsese calls the room and she says, "Come in, I want to talk to you." So I go in and talk to Martin. And he's in his room and all the windows, the screens are drawn. He's got 18 different TVs going on at the same time in this dark room. And he's talking to me about black. And I sort of got out of there. And then I went back to my room and they changed my room. Now this is really weird. They had changed my room and moved my stuff. And they told me they were going to do it, but I forgot. So I'm using a key to get into my room and it won't work. And the door opens up all of a sudden and it's Keith Richards in his underpants standing there staring through me and there's a girl in a mink coat walking around it, mink coat and nothing else, walking in the background. And Keith Richards standing there in his underpants with a spliff. And I'm like, I tried to explain that I thought it was my room, but it wasn't. And, you know, it was ridiculous. I'm 26 years old. And he just looks at me like, shuts the door in my face. I thought, well, that was my meeting with Keith Richards. He slammed the door in my face. So it's fantastic, you know. Anyway, but what were we talking about?
Caviezel playing
Caviezel.
Christ.
He did something I think that nobody else did, and I think he pulled it off because I totally like believed it.
I believed it too.
And it was like, what did he do? He emptied himself out.
Yeah.
And he invited something else in. And he left it. He didn't try anything. He emptied himself out and he meditated. And he let Christ in.
But that role seemed to have had a profound effect on him
It did.
as a human being.
Oh, absolutely.
And kind of fucked him up in his career.
A little bit. Yeah. It's like Cassius in the top.
Right.
And they get you to just make a speech somewhere. And
Right.
You know, it's like, you know, people throwing eggs at you. And so.
Yeah.
And you wonder, you know, should I even be saying this? And so he stepped on a bunch of landmines. But who could play this? And I saw the opening shot from Terry Malick's film, which was The Thin Red Line.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a big close-up of Caviezel. And there was something otherworldly and childlike going on there in the close-up. And I thought, who's that guy? He's amazing. Of course, you couldn't keep the blue eyes. You had to trade him out. So I changed the color of his eyes to brown and all that stuff. So it looked like he came from the region.
Right.
But amazing. What he already had a quality, an ethereal kind of otherworldliness, space cadet quality.
Yeah.
And he's still kind of like that. He's still, wow.
Yeah, he's. You know, I wish I had met him, or I haven't met him still, but I wish I'd seen him before and then after. You know, to see like what
these lightning strikes happening on the set, you know. And there was this guy with him. He was a young fella, one of the assistants on the film. His name was Jan. And old Jan was like, he's like 6'2", Italian, northern Italian guy, you know. If he tripped in the street, women would slide under him, you know. It was that kind of stuff. The guy was like a babe magnet, right? And I think he was taking full advantage of the gifts he had. But he got hit by lightning the first time, hitting people. We were out on the hill and there was a lightning storm, like with the crosses and stuff.
Oh, Jesus.
And this guy called Chieppo, he was a grip, and he never spoke a word to me the whole time. He was just a quiet kind of guy. And I figured, he doesn't know English, you know. But he came up to me, and in perfect English, he said, you know, I think you should get all the people off the hill. We could be struck by lightning. And I thought, that's a good idea. Let's get off the hill. So we're moving off the hill. Everybody's getting off. And this kid gets hit through the umbrella, this Jan guy. And he gets zapped by lightning, right? But he's 22, and he goes to the disco all night and dance. You know, he's doing the whole, 22 experience. And he comes back the next day, and he's like, yeah, it was great. And then he was with Jim the second time it happened. But this time, I found him in a Fiat Bambino with his knees up under his ears, like waiting for the third strike. He was like, this just doesn't happen twice in the third strike. And he says, I have to change my life. So it was pretty
filming
funny.
that movie must have had a profound effect on a lot of people. Right?
It did, yeah.
Because you were doing something.
Yes, it was self-funded, and it was a very strange experience, that one, because I put the money in. I thought, well, maybe I'll break even. And it was the money, but it was worth the experience. And so one guy was left in the room at the end when the dust settled. It was some guy. He's like, I'll distribute. And
If you love iPhone, you'll love Apple Card. It comes with a privacy
phones before. And I think it was a Charlize Theron movie called A Monster, about that horrible serial killer.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll do it. And, it was just really basics. I went and